The air in our house was heavy with the unspoken. When I lit the lone candle, the soft light cast shadows on the walls, emphasizing the emptiness that still remained. It was the anniversary of the day I learned of the dissolution of my marriage, a day that should have been filled with celebration, but instead it was marked by the solemn recognition of a broken union. I sat alone in our living room, surrounded by memories that now seemed distorted and tainted. The pictures on the walls that had once testified to our happiness now mocked me with their deceptive smiles. I couldn't shake off the echo of promises made and broken. For better or for worse, in sickness and in health, those vows echoed in my head like a haunting melody, each note a reminder of the unraveled thread that had once bound us together. I sighed, circling the anniversary date on my calendar, the ink smudged from countless touches. Did I really sign up for this? I muttered to myself, and the question echoed in the empty room for a long time to come. Memories of that fateful day came flooding back to me a year ago. I sat in my office and questioned the path my life had chosen. In the silence, a voice rang out in my head, a whisper of doubt and disappointment. For better or worse. I spoke the words aloud, as if testing their resonance. The bitterness of reality clung to every syllable. The silence in the room was broken only by the creaking of the floorboards, a sound that seemed to reflect the gradual destruction of my world. As the candle flickered, casting dancing shadows, a sudden realization hit me. I survived, I said, repeating the words with increasing force. I came out of it stronger. This recognition was a bittersweet victory, a glimpse of resilience amidst the wreckage. In the loneliness of that moment, the room became a confessional. I remember the oath I confessed to the empty space. In sickness and in health, until death do us part. The last words hung in the air, and for a fleeting moment, death seemed a preferable exit. The shadows grew even deeper as I leaned back in my chair, and the flickering candlelight reflected on my face. But death, I reflected, was beginning to seem like my way out. The confession hung heavy, exposing the vulnerability of the truth. As I sat in the dimly lit room, the weight of the past year pressed down on me. It was not a celebration of joy, but a memory of survival. The unraveling thread of our marriage had brought me to this moment, a lonely figure surrounded by the remnants of a life that once promised to be eternal. The following days passed with a sense of dreary ordinariness, and the revelation of my wife's infidelity echoed in the routine of our existence together. It was at one of these seemingly ordinary moments that the threads of my unraveling life took an unexpected turn. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows on the familiar streets I walked. The routine drive home from work had turned into a contemplative journey, and the shattered illusions of my marriage were still bouncing around in my head. The outside world seemed oblivious to the storm raging inside. As I approached the traffic light, I stared absent-mindedly at the changing colors, lost in the maze of my thoughts. The revelation had come without warning, and now I doubted every shared laugh, every shared silence. Was there a moment when the truth lurked in the space between us, hidden from view? As the light turned red, I idly looked around at my surroundings, seeking refuge from my inner turmoil. And then, amidst the usual bustle, I saw it, my wife's car turning into the parking lot of a local motel. My breath caught, and I gripped the steering wheel tightly. "What the hell?" I whispered, not believing my voice. The motel, unremarkable and unassuming, seemed to mock the stability I thought I had. Seconds stretched into eternity as I watched it disappear behind the motel facade. The unraveling thread pulled tighter and tighter, and I was left hanging in a moment that defied explanation. A decision ignited in me, an instinctive reaction to the betrayal I had witnessed. Without hesitation, I turned the wheel and followed her into the parking lot of the gas station adjacent to the motel. My heart pounded with confusion and determination. What was she doing there? Was this a mere coincidence, or the culmination of a carefully hidden secret? Parking in a vacant lot, I got into the silent car, its engine humming quietly. The front of the motel held secrets, and I intended to solve them. The smell of gasoline and distant traffic lingered in the air, and I watched her, keeping my eyes on the entrance through which she disappeared. One of the passers-by cast a curious glance at me, lingering on my tense figure. "Is everything all right?" he asked with an expression of concern on his face. I gave a strained smile, and the mask of normality slid off my face. "Just fine," I replied, and the words themselves became heavy. But as I stared at the motel, the mask of normality began to crack. The unraveling thread pulled tighter, and I found myself on the verge of a revelation that would change the course of my life. The harsh neon lights of the gas station flickered, casting an uneven glow on my face as I sat in my car, watching the motel like a hawk watches its prey. The decision to observe rather than confront became a strategic choice, a chess move in a game of unraveling the truth. Minutes passed into hours, and the motel entrance remained a mysterious portal to a world I didn't even know existed. My mind reeled with questions, doubts, and the bitter realization that the unraveling thread of my marriage was about to reveal a truth darker than I had ever imagined. Sitting in my chair, I imagined various scenarios, each more painful than the last. Would she leave the house hand in hand with a stranger and their secret liaison be exposed? Or was her presence in this seedy motel due to something innocent? Uncertainty gnawed at me, strengthening the knots in my stomach. The sudden memory of the vows we'd exchanged haunted me, for better or worse. The promises echoed in my head, and I wondered if that worse was what we'd sworn to go through together. The realization cut through the fog of disbelief, and a spark of anger ignited in me. My phone buzzed, interrupting my lonely vigil. A message from a friend oblivious to the events going on in my life. "Hey, what's up?" The message read. I stared at the screen, pondering how to respond to a world that continues to exist while mine falls apart. "Busy day," I typed, hesitant to press the keys. The lie tasted bitter, but the truth was a revelation I wasn't ready to share. Not yet. A gas station attendant walked by, casting a curious glance at me. "Everything okay, sir?" he inquired, asking a routine question that had unexpected weight. "Just waiting for someone," I replied. There was a veiled truth in those words, hinting at the storm brewing inside. He nodded and continued his rounds, leaving me alone with my thoughts. As I sat in the dimly lit car, the minutes stretched into eternity. The motel remained a mystery, its secrets locked behind closed doors. The unraveling thread of my marriage urged me to act, but the strategist in me held back, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the truth. In the silence, a memory surfaced of a time when trust was the foundation of our love. Now that trust had been broken, I clung to the unraveling thread, determined to unravel the mystery that had become my life. I did not yet know that this silent vigil was the prelude to a chain of events that would forever change the course of my history. The night progressed, the secrets of the motel hidden behind closed doors. My eyes, strained by hours of vigilance, glimmered with fatigue. The unraveling thread of my marriage had become an invisible anchor, tying me to a reality I could no longer fathom. A sudden movement at the motel entrance brought my attention back to me. My heart raced as I saw her walking out of the hotel alone. Relief and confusion struggled within me. Had I been wrong? Had my suspicions been unfounded? Uncertainty clawed at my insides. She looked around, her eyes darting around nervously. Guilt colored her features as she hurried to her car, discreetly parked in the shadows. I hesitated, torn between confronting her and letting the unraveling thread lead me further down the rabbit hole. As she drove away, I followed at a safe distance, and the gas station attendant cast perplexed glances in my direction. The road stretched out before us, an unspoken tension in the air. In my rearview mirror, her taillights disappeared around the corner, leaving me to ponder the truth I was seeking. The drive home passed in quiet reverie, the heaviness of the night settling into the depths of my thoughts. The unraveling thread had brought me to a crossroads, and the choice before me seemed insurmountable. Morning came with a heaviness that reflected the mysteries I carried within me. Daily life continued, but my world shifted on its axis. I found myself teetering on the edge of confrontation, the words that needed to be said stuck in my throat. A knock on the door broke my inner turmoil. Opening the door, I saw two police officers with badges glistening in the daylight. "May I see you for a moment, sir?" one of them asked, the expression on his face unreadable. "Sure," I replied stammeringly, and led them into the living room. The unraveling thread seemed to lead into unpredictable distances. "We received a report of a robbery in the area," the second officer explained, keeping his eyes on me. "The suspect fits the description of someone in your neighborhood. Can you explain your whereabouts yesterday?" A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. The unraveling thread pulled tighter and tighter as I recounted the previous day's events, omitting the silent vigil at the gas station. The officers exchanged glances, their suspicions obvious. The truth was unfolding like a carefully staged drama. The suspect captured by the surveillance camera looked just like my wife. The officers asked for details, but I pretended I didn't know anything. The unraveling thread seemed to lead me to a revelation I didn't depend on. "She was with me all day," I lied, feeling a bitter taste on my tongue. The officers exchanged knowing glances, but the unraveling thread tangled not only my wife in its web, but me as well. The police officers left, promising to investigate further. As the door closed behind them, the weight of the choice I had made came over me. The unsolved thread had unraveled more than I had realized, revealing not only my wife's secret, but my own immersion in a world of lies. In the silence that followed, the reality of my actions hung in the air. An unresolved thread had led me to a point of no return, and the consequences of my choices loomed on the horizon. Days turned into weeks, and the specter of an unraveling thread hung over my life. The police investigation was casting a shadow over more than just my broken marriage. The town, once a haven for shared stories, now whispered about the scandal that had broken within its borders. The local precinct became the stage for the drama of my personal life. Officers exchanged glances as I passed by, and the weight of their unspoken judgments pressed down on me. The unraveling thread not only revealed my wife's adultery, but also entangled me in a web of legality. One day, as I was walking down familiar streets, a police officer approached me. His facial expression, mixed with sympathy and amusement, hinted at the rumors that had been floating around the precinct. "Interesting story you have," he remarked with a half-smile on his lips. I nodded, feeling an unraveling thread pulling me into a conversation I wasn't expecting. "I'm just trying to move forward," I replied, making a weak attempt to brush off the judgment lurking in his gaze. The officer's gaze shifted, as if assessing my sincerity. "Well, you certainly gave the precinct officer something to talk about. The incident with the cheating raider, that's what they call him." He grinned, feeling the gravity of my choice being reduced to a point. The unraveling thread had become a narrative, a walking joke in the very precinct where justice was to be served. I felt a mixture of indignation and resignation as the officer continued. "I never thought we'd be investigating cases at the same time as robberies. Life is full of surprises, isn't it?" I smiled forcedly. The unraveling thread was drawing me deeper and deeper into this public spectacle. The officer walked away, leaving me to deal with the consequences of my choice. The city that had once been the backdrop for the quiet moments of my life had become the stage for an unfolding scandal. When I filed for divorce, the judge overseeing the proceedings couldn't help but laugh when he realized the irony of my case. "A cheating raider divorce," he muttered, and the gavel fell with a resonance that echoed around the courtroom. The legal procedure unfolded with a mixture of satisfaction and bitter realization. An unbroken thread had brought me to this moment, a divorce finalized amidst laughter and scandal. My wife, who had become the town spectacle, faced the consequences of her choices, but the legal ramifications for her lover were minor. The unraveled thread revealed the affair, but left an unfulfilled sense of justice. In the weeks that followed, the cheating raider incident became a walking joke of the precinct. Officers who had once stood up for the law now laughed at my personal tragedy. In a town that was quickly becoming gossipy, whispers of what haunted my wife wherever she went were recounted. An unraveling thread seemed to weave a narrative far beyond my personal life. When the legal procedures were finalized and the divorce became a final chapter, I was left to deal with the aftermath. The city, now privy to the intimate details of my life, watched me navigate the ruins of a marriage that had disintegrated in the public eye. The aftermath of the incident with the traitor raider echoed through the town, leaving a trail of quiet conversations and judgmental glances. My once quiet life became a spectacle, a cautionary tale whispered about by neighbors and told in the halls of the local diner. I began to avoid meeting the eyes of familiar faces, and the weight of their knowing gazes became almost palpable. Every step I took in the city that had once been my refuge felt like a disgrace. The unraveled thread seemed to leave me under the scrutiny of a society ready to condemn. One evening, as I passed a group of neighbors chatting animatedly among themselves, their voices hushed at my approach. A familiar face turned to me. "Hi, how are you?" they asked with thinly veiled curiosity. I smiled weakly, unraveling the thread, pulling me into a conversation I was too used to by now. "You know how it is," I replied, and those words had their own weight. The neighbor nodded understandingly, looking conspiratorially into my eyes. "It's a small town, right? No secrets." As I left, the echoes of their words echoed in my head for a long time. The town that had once been a tapestry of shared stories had become a place where my every move was scrutinized. The unraveled thread not only revealed an affair, but wove a narrative that branded me with the scarlet letter of betrayal. At the grocery store, whispers haunted me at every turn. In the park where children once played carefree, the weight of judgment hung in the air. The unraveled thread had become an indelible stain on the canvas of my life, and I was left to deal with the consequences in a city that had become both judge and jury. The echoes of betrayal reverberated in every corner. As I entered the local diner, the quiet conversations stopped, and a collective stare followed me to an empty booth. I felt like an exhibit in a museum of personal tragedies, my every move studied by stares that read pity and morbid admiration. Even the barista at the coffee shop, previously friendly, now looked at me with a subtle change in demeanor. "The usual?" she asked, and the question was filled with an unspoken condemnation that hung in the air like a thunderstorm ready to break. "Yes, please," I replied, avoiding looking her in the eye. The unraveled thread left me exposed, vulnerable to the gaze of those I had once known. The bitterness of their judgment became a bitter undercurrent in the routine interactions that had once seemed easy to me. Weeks passed, and I found solace in the solitude of my home. The unraveled thread not only revealed an affair, but also severed ties with friends who were once trusted confidants. I distanced myself from the secondary friends who were relics of my past, cutting off the whispers that haunted me like shadows. In the silence of my own company, I pondered the echoes of betrayal that echoed through the city. The unraveled thread, the once hidden truth, had become a public spectacle, and I was left to wander the ruins of a life that had collapsed under the weight of judgment and whispers. The solitude of my home became a refuge from the droning whispers of the city. Surrounded by the shards of a shattered life, I faced the daunting task of rebuilding among the ruins. The unraveled thread left scars, but in quiet moments I found the strength to move forward. I began by severing ties with those who had become echoes of the past I wanted to leave behind. Secondary friends, once intertwined with an unraveling thread, were cast aside, their presence a reminder of the betrayal that had become a public spectacle. The routine of daily life became a form of therapy, a slow unraveling of the threads that still clung to the wreckage of my past. I focused on true allies, friends who weathered the storm with me, offering support without judgment. Their laughter became balm for deep wounds. In the weeks that followed, I struggled with the emotional fallout from the Raiders of Deception incident. The unraveled thread exposed not only the affair, but the vulnerabilities that lay beneath the surface. Faced with my own insecurities and doubts, I found solace in the company of those who saw beyond the scandal. The decision to postpone dating until the divorce was finalized became a conscious decision. I needed time to heal, to untangle the emotions that still hung in the air, like a ghost of the past. The unraveled thread left me emotionally raw, and I jumped at the chance to face the pain head-on. About a month after the divorce was finalized, a chance encounter introduced me to my soulmate. She too bore the scars of a cheating spouse, and our shared experience became a bridge between two wounded souls. We found comfort in the understanding glances and unspoken sympathy that were passed on to each other. She became a beacon of hope in a history dominated by betrayal. Together, we walked the road to recovery, taking each step with deliberate slowness. The unraveled thread that once pulled me into darkness became a source of strength, and I began to weave a new narrative based on resilience and self-discovery. Our shared mission to find the best bourbon produced on earth became a metaphor for the slow but deliberate enjoyment of life. We explored distilleries, savoring every nuance of flavor, as if it held the key to unlocking the secrets of our past. The unraveled thread that became part of our shared history was a reminder of the strength to be found in vulnerability. As weeks turned into months, the echoes of betrayal that once haunted me began to fade. The city, quick to embrace the scandal, moved on to new stories, leaving me to recover from it. The unraveled thread, though forever a part of my history, could no longer determine my future. In the quiet moments spent with an interlocutor who understood what betrayal was, I found a new purpose. The whispers of the city that had once been a cacophony of condemnation became a distant echo in the background. With each passing day, I moved forward, facing the unknown with a newfound sense of resilience and hope. The ruins of my past became the foundation for a future yet to be written. In the gentle rhythm of our shared search for the perfect bourbon, she and I found solace. Our chance encounter grew into a real connection, a friendship built on a shared understanding of betrayal and the slow process of recovery. We traveled the distillery world together, studying the nuances of each bourbon variety, as if it contained the answers to life's questions. The unbreakable thread that used to pull me into darkness now became a guiding thread, leading me toward a future intertwined with the warmth of companionship. She spoke of her own journey, the pain of a cheating spouse, and the resilience needed to piece together a shattered life. There was both sadness and laughter in our conversations, and the echoes of our shared experiences created a bond that overcame the scars of betrayal. Sipping bourbon in dimly lit distilleries, I found myself opening up in ways I hadn't before. An undiscovered thread peeled away layers of pretense, leaving behind a vulnerability that became the foundation of our connection. It was as if our shared mission to find the best bourbon on earth became a metaphor for our shared mission to discover joy. One evening, as the amber liquid swirled in our glasses, she looked at me with a genuine smile. "You know," she began, "we have a sacred mission here." I grinned, the warmth of her companionship soothing the remnants of past wounds. "A sacred mission indeed," I replied, raising my glass. The unraveled thread, now a distant memory, seemed to lead me to a place of unexpected joy. Our shared laughter echoed through the spacious halls of the distillery, a testament to the resilience that can be found in unlikely friendly company. The slow pace at which we approached our mission reflected the deliberate steps we took to rebuild our lives. An unresolved thread, though part of our shared history, could no longer dictate our future. The city, having exhausted its appetite for scandal, turned its attention elsewhere, leaving us alone to explore our sacred mission. Our leisurely journey in search of the perfect Bourbon turned into a symbolic journey of healing and self-discovery. In our moments of quiet time together, I realized that the unraveled thread had not only exposed wounds, but created space for a new beginning. The scars of betrayal, though still present, became a testament to the strength that can be found in facing hardship. As the months passed, our connection grew deeper. The unraveled thread that was once a source of pain was now part of our shared narrative. We navigated life's turmoil together, our laughter drowning out the echoes of judgment that once haunted me. Our search for the perfect Bourbon became a ritual, a celebration of the simple joys of life. With each sip, I regained a sense of gratitude for the companionship that had emerged from the ruins of betrayal. The unraveled thread, now a distant echo, seemed to weave a tapestry of resilience and hope, guiding us into a future where joy and laughter would eclipse the shadows of the past. As the seasons changed and our shared pursuit of the perfect Bourbon continued, shadows of the past occasionally loomed over our newfound companionship. The unresolved thread, though woven into the fabric of our bond, had not yet fully loosened its grip. One evening, as we sat in the warmth of a cozy bourbon bar, a familiar face appeared on the television screen. The news was talking about the Raiders of Deception incident, prying into the details of a scandal that had once rocked the entire city. An unresolved thread that had once been a distant memory was now pulling us back into the harsh spotlight of public scrutiny. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, feeling the stares of the other visitors. The echoes of judgment, though muted, seemed to reverberate in the air. She placed her hand on mine encouragingly, a silent gesture that spoke volumes. "There's no escaping the past," she said, and her eyes met mine with understanding. It seemed that the unraveled thread had left a mark that time could not erase. As the news continued to recount the events leading up to the incident with the rogue raider, I had mixed feelings. The city, moving quickly from one scandal to another, had returned to the story that was once its centerpiece. The unraveled thread, though faded, was still capable of stirring up old wounds. In the days that followed, whispers reappeared in the town. Strangers exchanged knowing glances, and the shadows of judgment hung over us like an impenetrable fog. It seemed that the unraveled thread had not yet fully released its grip, and the scars of betrayal lingered long in the collective memory of those who had witnessed the spectacle. One afternoon, as we were strolling through the city, a familiar face approached us. It was a former acquaintance, someone who had once been part of a secondary circle of friends that had been severed by an unbreakable thread. The air became tense. He hesitated, then squeezed out a half-smile. "Not a bad trip you're having," they remarked, and the words hung in the air. The unraveled thread, that had once been a private torment, was now a public spectacle again. We exchanged pleasantries, the conversation turning into a subtle dance around the unspoken. As they left, I couldn't escape the feeling that the shadows of the past hadn't quite receded. An unresolved thread, though faded, lingers firmly in the city's collective consciousness. In peace and quiet, she and I discussed the resurgence of urban curiosity. The unresolved thread, in some ways, became an indelible mark on our lives, a narrative that could never be rewritten. As we confronted the shadows of the past, our companionship became a source of strength. The echoes of judgment, though persistent, were drowned out by the shared laughter and sincere bond we created. The unresolved thread, woven into the fabric of our history, could not weaken the resilience that emerged from the ruins of betrayal. In the face of lingering shadows, we embraced the present, knowing that the unraveling, while part of our story, does not define our entire shared journey. The perfect Bourbon that once symbolized the quest for healing became a metaphor for moving forward gradually, savoring the moments of life despite the shadows that tried to linger. As the shadows of the past danced around us, she and I stood together, enduring the heavy judgments. The unresolved thread, though it continued to exist, had lost its power to dictate the course of our lives. In quiet moments of shared laughter and quiet understanding, we found strength. One evening, as we sat on the porch under a sky colored by the hues of twilight, she looked at me with a gaze that held both vulnerability and determination. "The past doesn't define us," she said, and there were notes of our shared history in her voice. "We can choose how we move forward." Her words sounded like a reminder that an unraveled thread, though woven into our history, has no right to determine our future. As we looked to the horizon, the whispers of the city became a distant echo, and the shadows of judgment receded. We continued our search for the perfect bourbon, but not to escape the past, but to celebrate the present. Each sip became a toast to resilience, a testament to the strength found in rebuilding amidst the ruins. The unraveling thread that had once been a source of pain now became a symbol of growth and transformation. In the weeks that followed, the curiosity of the townspeople waned, and the echoes of the scandal gradually subsided. The unraveled thread, though forever part of our narrative, faded into the background compared to the unfinished chapters that awaited us. We walked through life with a shared sense of purpose, savoring the moments that opened up with each passing day. Our friendships grew deeper, and the bond we created became a source of inspiration. We met life's turmoil hand in hand, knowing that the unraveled threads had in some way led us to a place of unexpected joy. The scars of betrayal, though inscribed in our history, became not symbols of defeat, but signs of resilience. As we stood on the threshold of an undescribed future, I felt a sense of gratitude for life's unexpected twists and turns. The unraveling thread that was once a force that threatened to unravel us became a thread in the rich tapestry of our shared experience. She and I embraced the beauty of the present, realizing that the past had shaped us, but not defined us. The whispers of the city, though still audible, could not drown out the laughter that echoed between us. It seemed that the unraveled thread led us not only through moments of pain, but also to a future filled with the promise of love and friendship. As we looked at the horizon together, I felt hope again. The unraveled thread had led us through the storms of betrayal, but now, beneath the expanse of the night sky, we were entering new chapters that awaited us. The perfect bourbon that once symbolized the search for healing became a metaphor for the slow but purposeful march forward, hand in hand, into the unknown.